Hey everybody, Necroxis here, and usually when I make one of these things I do it on a vlog, but today I am lazy. I'm not feeling too well, so I'm going to be doing it on just a voiced video with some kind of background picture that future Necroxis is going to put right here that you're looking at right now. Today we're going to talk a little bit, this video is not going to be too long, about Wildstar, the new MMORPG that just came out. It comes out in 2 days officially, but if you pre-order the game, you get it. You got it yesterday, or the 31st. So midnight on Friday. So I initially had no plans on buying Wildstar, and then I ended up getting a free pre-order from somebody that I know. So I decided, hey, it's a free game. It comes with 30 days, so I'm gonna try it out and see if any of the issues that I had when I played the beta were fixed. Just a really quick background. I played the beta for, a couple of hours towards the end. I believe it was the end of April-ish when I did it. I played with Howie and Jan, who both are big fans of Wildstar. And, I wasn't impressed. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't impressed. And that's kind of how I feel still. I feel that way now still. I don't hate the game, even though it might seem like I bash it on Twitter sometimes. It's more of people that I play stuff with are playing Wildstar instead of other things that I'd like to do, so I'm kind of annoyed. But it's their life; they can do whatever they want with it. But that's pretty much it. So I just want to preface it by saying I'm not actually being a hypocrite by saying I'm not the biggest fan of Wildstar, but I'm playing it. So this is I'm gonna try and shoot for only like a 5-minute video here because I haven't actually played a lot of Wildstar, so I can't even review a lot of the game. But this is kind of a first impression 2.0 video. I didn't make a first impression when I did the beta because I felt like I didn't play enough to actually do a review. And usually when I do reviews, I do full-blown reviews. But this time, I got to roughly the same place I did in the beta, and I ended up stopped playing. And so I feel like having that happen twice, I can sufficiently make a first impressions video. And so here we go. That was a very long 2.5-minute intro. Well, kind of, but here we go. All right, Wildstar. So, Wildstar, to my knowledge, is made by NCSoft, which they've made other MMORPGs, such as, I believe, let's do a little bit of live Googling. NCSoft, I believe, is, Guild Wars? Let's see. Guild Wars, Ion, City of Heroes, Lineage, Guild Wars 2. So, they're the development company, I guess. And from what I've been told for Wildstar, it has a lot of the developers from the old school World of Warcraft people. So people, I guess, who developed the game in vanilla in BC, who then left the company and went to Carbine Studios, which is the developer. I'm sorry, NCSoft is the publisher, not the developer. Herpaderp. So they went to Carbine Studios, who developed Wildstar. And I remember reading several interviews of some of the devs who said they wanted to bring back the old feel of World of Warcraft and vanilla. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, vanilla is the initial base game. It's what people call it now that we have like 4 expansions now. So the original game, World of Warcraft, just World of Warcraft, the original game, also known as vanilla. So Wildstar has quite a few devs from vanilla, and one of my biggest problems with what I've seen so far is you can very much tell that Wildstar has a bunch of devs from vanilla. The game seems very much not polished, which is surprising. One thing that Blizzard is known for is having very polished games. There are very few bugs. There are very few problems when you are launching the game. Not in terms of servers, because, every MMORPG has problems with that. I'm not going to ding Wildstar for having a rocky launch-ish. But, like other core features like chat features and UI features. And to me, it feels like Wildstar has a lot of these problems, which are the same problems that vanilla had for months and months and months until they fixed them. And a lot of them they didn't even fix till BC. Some specifics. The chat system is completely broken. Mostly broken. Whispering is ridiculous because you have to whisper somebody And you're used to, in almost every other current MMORPG, you don't have to type the person's name in every single time you whisper them, but in Wildstar you have to do that. Sometimes you can hit /R and it'll work, and other times it just won't work for no reason whatsoever. So the only way you can for sure not waste a whisper when you type out a long sentence to somebody is typing in their name every single time. It might seem like a little bit of a nitpick, but it was extremely annoying when I kept trying to talk with Janelle, who was she was playing at the same time I was, and I was asking her questions because she's a lot farther along in the game than I am. And it just got really frustrating to the point that I was like, this is just fucking broken, and I was talking to her on Skype instead, that's a failure of the game. Another problem I have is the UI is absolutely terrible, in my opinion. I had this complaint in the beta when I played it, and I was talking about it on Twitter, and I guess we passed the 5-minute mark, so oh well. And I was talking about it on Twitter, and people were saying, oh, they're going to fix it, but the way the quest dialogue is delivered to you is terrible. If you think about it how it is like in WoW, if you go to get a quest, the actual static quest screen pops up, and you can read it, and it's clear, and there's no distractions, and it's very obvious what it wants you to do. In Wildstar, when you go for a quest, the screen is as big as the number of lines the dialogue takes up from the quest giver. And pretty much every single quest I've done thus far, the dialogue, I put in quotation marks when I say that, doesn't really tell me anything. It's kind of like, oh, the bad guys are doing something bad, go and fix it, and then the actual quest, once you get it, will explain what you actually need to do. Which, it's not necessarily bad, but again, the way the quest dialogue is delivered to me is my problem. For example, imagine it this way if you play World of Warcraft. When you type /say, you can enable the feature to have the bubble pop up over your character's head instead of just typing it in a chat. That's how the dialogue for quests is delivered. It's delivered in like a speech bubble. There are NPCs who say things to you in the chat box, but that's not how the quest text is delivered. So a lot of the time, what'll happen is I'll be going to do a quest and I'll read it. I'll try to read it, and there's so much other stuff going on in the background, which I'll get to in a second, that sometimes I have to read it twice, 3 times, maybe even 4 times to be like, what the fuck do they want me to do? And it's just it's gotten to a point where it seems like they don't even give a shit about the dialogue or any of the quests. They just want you to get the quests and not read it and just go and do them, which I guess some people might like, but as a fan of the lore and the story, I don't really. A little side note on the lore, it's not really interesting. It seems very generic. From what I've seen thus far. Now, it's entirely possible, and I will forgive the game if this is the case, that there's actually a rich and deep story that you don't really learn about till later on in the game. That's entirely possible, because with World of Warcraft, you don't actually get the whole depth of the story when you play 10 levels, which is basically as much as I've done comparatively. I've gotten out of the tutorial zone, which for WoW would be, the 1 through 6 area beginning zones. That's pretty much what I've done. So, yeah, that's another problem that I have. A third problem, I mentioned it earlier, is everything in the background. The game is very, very colorful to a point that it's too colorful. And I know, again, some people are going to like this, but for me, going from World of Warcraft to Wildstar, there are times where, I guess I'll give an example. I had a quest where I had to, I just defused this bomb on the ship, and I had to go and find, I was in this storage room that had a bunch of historical artifacts in it. And after I defused the bomb, the quest giver was like, okay, I need you to go and find these historical artifacts and make sure they didn't get damaged in the attack. And I had to find 3 little files. And I actually tweeted about this because it was so fucking ridiculous. The room was only not the room, but the area that I had to look was only 5 feet by 5 feet, and it took me legitimately 10-15 minutes to find the 3 files because A, the game doesn't point out the items to you. They're not lit up to be click me here, click this. I need you to get this. They weren't lit up. There was no indication where they were. The quest quote tracker system that they have, where you can hit the quest and a big arrow goes, it wasn't specific enough. It just led me to the area, and basically it was kind of all right, good luck. And it's kind of the items blended in with the background because everything is so over the top color wise. And I have to imagine that the other quests are probably going to be the same way. I don't know why these 2 quests that I've done would be different for some reason. Why would you do that? So those are kind of my biggest gripes. I mean, I could go into the combat, but that's entirely subjective, even more so than what I've been talking about previously, most of which have been subjective. But, you know, I get why people like the combat system, the dynamic, in quotes, combat system. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I really like WoW or SWTOR's or, you know, Rift's system where it's like, you know, you plant yourself for the most part and you do your abilities, you know, if you're a caster, which is what I like to play. And Wildstar just not like that. You have to constantly move, and it gets to a point where me as a person who doesn't like just jump constantly, I feel like if I got to like the end of the game, I would be disenfranchised or I would be less well off compared to other people who are just constantly spamming movement, because I just don't like to play like that. I like to have a relaxed environment when I play. I know what I want to do, where I want to move when I do. I don't want to have to constantly be running all over the place. And I think the telegraph system that they have is it's not, I guess an easy way to put it is it's not as good as a lot of people pretend it is. I just think it's there. It's the thing that exists. It's okay, I guess. But a lot of people were like, this is an amazing new system. And I'm kind of like, well, they've done it before. You know, Terra does almost the exact same thing. And coincidentally, or I guess much not so, I also am not the biggest fan of Terra. So, yeah. Other than that, I guess I can talk about one last thing is what people have been telling me when I've been talking about these problems. And pretty much the biggest thing I've been told is, oh, they'll fix it later. And, you know, if this was 2004, I would excuse it, but it's not. It's 2014. World of Warcraft has been out for 10 years. The king of the MMOs that, you know, have beaten everybody else by a mile has been out for a decade, or almost a decade. You can't put out a game like this and then expect people to wait for you to fix it to be right. That's not acceptable. It's what happened with Final Fantasy XIV, where the game almost just failed because of how bad it was when it launched. They had to remake a lot of the game. I'm not saying they have to do that with Wildstar, because a lot of people seem to like what they're doing, but like I said at the very beginning, it very much feels like a lot of features from vanilla WoW, which is funny because then they also have a dungeon finder, which is like the biggest complaint that people who played early on in WoW and then quit complain about when they talk about why the game is so bad now, according to them. It's the dungeon finder and looking for raid. And yet there's a dungeon finder in the game, which is kind of funny. And I was talking to people last night, I was saying, look, you know, people can complain about the dungeon finder, but the second that a game doesn't have one, everyone complains until they add one in. Star Wars: The Old Republic is a perfect example of this. So, you know, I don't buy the excuse that, you know, they'll fix it later. For example, I was told, oh, you know, the chat system's broken, but they'll fix it later. It's like, well, why the fuck did it not launch with a good chat system to begin with? Why is it hard for me to figure out how to organize my chat boxes and my channels? And half the time, I spent like a good half hour trying to organize my channels into something similar that I had in WoW, and over again, I ended up just canceling out and getting rid of the chat channels to where I then had to go and re-up and put them all back again to figure out what I did. I ended up hitting a wrong X button. I hit a different X button instead of the X button that I wanted, and it got rid of all of my chat channels. And it's the problem is, I guess the biggest problem I have with Wildstar is it doesn't tell you enough information about what you want to do in the game or with the UI or with the features. Again, I also spent like 20-30 minutes trying to just organize the game to work the way that I kind of want it to work, with my specific nameplates and who and what and when I want them to show cast bars and when the health bars show up and everything that shows up, the shields that you get. I spent a long time just trying to figure out how to get those to show them in the way that I want. And the problem is you don't have a good indication about how to set those things up on your own. You're kind of just expected to either just roll with what they give you, which is not acceptable to begin with because I don't really like it, or go look up extensively online how to do something. And again, this is not 2004, this is 2014. It should come baseline ready for most people to use. I don't consider myself a hardcore elitist player. I mean, I'm casual at this point. I shouldn't have all of these problems trying to play your game just starting out. So, you know, I do still have, you know, it's only been 2 days since I've been playing, and I still have, you know, another 28 days. I'm going to continue playing And if there's some big changes, I guess I'll come back and make a new update to this video. But Wildstar very much is average. It's very mediocre. It's basically something to tide people over until Warlords of Draenor comes out, I think, because by far and away, I think World of Warcraft has nailed down their system, nailed down how the game should work, nailed down core common features of how MMOs should operate. It's all of the problems that Wildstar has that they shouldn't have, by the way, especially from a bunch of devs who made World of Warcraft. I don't know how they made the game and then went backwards and went worse, but you know, all of the problems they have, WoW doesn't. So I really feel like once Warlords of Draenor comes out, Wildstar is going to lose a lot of players, because I know a lot of people, myself included, don't like to pay for more than one subscription-based game at a time. And right now I'm not subscribed to WoW, but once Warlords comes out, I will be, and I definitely won't be subscribed to Wildstar. Actually, I probably won't even subscribe after my free 30 days are up, because the game has just failed to impress me. You know, so yeah, that's my first impressions on Wildstar. As I said, most of these points are entirely subjective. People can and probably will disagree with me in the comments. You know, try out the game for yourself if you want, I guess. You can still get in early. It doesn't come out till Tuesday officially, but if you pre-order it still, you can get in now. But if you're a WoW player like me looking to do something, I frankly wouldn't waste the $60. I would just go and play some other thing that doesn't cost that much and have a subscription until Warlords comes out. But, you know, it's your prerogative, your money to do with what you wish. So, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. If I had to rate the game on a scale of 1 to 5, I probably would give it a 2, maybe a 2.5. So that's Wildstar. As I said, this is very much a first impressions video. This is very much mostly subjective. I haven't played a lot of the game yet, but for people who are saying, oh, just give the game a chance, for people who are new to your game, you shouldn't have to play hours and hours and hours before you get to a point in the game where it's, quote, good. That's you're failing in your game design if that's what you're doing. And if that's what people are going to say, I am going to disregard that argument, because you're supposed to hook players immediately when they play their game. You're supposed to show up and be like, wow, this is great, this is good, I want to keep playing this. And I just don't. Like I said on Twitter, I was struggling to continue playing the game. I was very bored when I was playing. And all of the problems I was experiencing weren't helping. They were exacerbating my boredness, I guess, if you want to put it in a very layman way. So yeah, that's it. That's my first impressions, Wildstar. This actually ended up being 18 minutes, which not 5, so oh well. That always seems to be my problem. I'm too verbose. So thank you guys. If you disagree with me, which I'm sure some of you or most of you will, you can also you can put those in the comments below. And you know, if you have any questions about Wildstar maybe that I could answer for what little I played, put those in the comments and I'll try. I didn't even get into the points about like raid attunements, which Wildstar has an absurd. I read an attunement for one of their raids, which probably will take 6 months to complete after you hit level cap. Also, which is kind of like how vanilla is, and I can't stand it. So, I guess I could explain more later if people want. But, yeah, that's my Wildstar first impression. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Farewell.